Hello everyone, welcome back to this video. I will teach you how to make galaxy kind of effects with the help of particular inside the After Effects. I have divided this tutorial step by step to achieve the effects of galaxy. If you are watching first time this video, then I would like to prefer you please watch my other videos, Introduction to Particular, so that you will get a basic idea about generating particles and definitely help you in this advanced tutorial. If you have a basic knowledge of particular, you may start from this video. If you want to more video like this, then subscribe, share and like my channel. Let's get started. Step 1. Create cloudlet from light. Press Ctrl N to create a new composition and press OK. Press Ctrl Y to make a solid layer. I am keeping the name controller and size 100 by 100 pixel. Press OK. Convert this solid layer into 3D layer by the active this small cubic icon. Here I want to generate the particle from the light. I am creating light here. Press Ctrl Alt Shift L to create a point light. And don't forget to rename the light name emitter. Otherwise particle will not generate from the lights if you leave the default name. Press Ctrl D to make a duplicate copy of the light layer. I will take here 3 copies. Now arrange the position of the light to the edge of the controller layer. Select all the layer and connect with the controller layer. Press Ctrl Y to make a solid layer for generating particles. Always give the name to your layer so that you can easily find the layer with their name. Once you have many layers in your composition, select the layer and go to Effects menu, Trapcode, select Particular. I change the particle rate around 5000 up to 1 second and activate the watch icon. Go to the next frame, put 0 so that the particle will not generate after 1 second. Change emitter type to lights and reduce the velocity around 5.0. Also reduce the velocity random and velocity distribution 0. And keep the velocity from motion about 10%. Let's decrease the size of the emitter 25% in all axes. Open the physics factor and keep the value 0 at 1 second. And go to the 1 frame back, put the value 1. So that all the particle will generate only 1 frame after the particle rate 0. Now select the controller layer, press R for rotation and give the rotation in Z axis frequency 1 at 1 second. Let's animate scale value also. 10% at 1 second and 1000% from the beginning of the layer. You can take your own values, it's up to your project. Adjust the light position to make a swirl effect. It is very close to the screen just because of the z-axis value in the light position. So I'll put the 0 in z-axis in all the lights. Now you can easily adjust the light to make a perfect swirl. Now come back to particle attribute. Change the particle type to cloudlet. And reduce the feather 0. Also increase the particle size up to 10%. Size random up to 100%. Next I want variation in cloudlet size. So that open the size of overlay graph and draw the curve. Experiment for different types of size. Decrease the opacity 10% and size random 100%. Change the color you like. Select both the layer and press star key from numpad to make a marker on the layer and shift the layer marker at the beginning of the comp. This is the end of the step 1. Step 2. Camera animation. Let's active two horizontal views so that in another view we can see the camera. Press Ctrl Alt Shift C to create a camera. I will take here 50 mm. Press OK. Now adjust the camera. Once I bit closer to the camera position, I will create one null object and convert this null object into 3D. Connect the camera to the null object. Control my camera from here to here. Press R for rotation and I activate Z axis and animate this camera for up to 15 seconds. Press N to shift the work area endpoint to the current frame and give the value in rotation around 160 degrees. Let it be double. 160. Let's adjust the camera to finalize the position. I will keep the value in Y axis around 2500. And around 200 or minus 200 in the x-axis. Now I satisfy with the camera view.
Now after this, I just come back to non-rotation Z. Yeah, it's okay. So now select this emitter and there is no need for this light. So I just open up my plugin and let's keep it here. Now come back to first frame.
Let me switch one view. Press
Now
Ctrl D
select
to
this
make
one,
a duplicate
Control
copy
D,
of the particle layer.
duplicate this layer and select their particle size, emitter rate, and press OK.
Here I decrease the
Particle
particle rate
rate,
just half of the previous particle rate.
rate 5000 and select this one here.
Change the direction of the
Now
particle
emitter
outward
type, that
so
is
that particle will spread more.
I will choose here, you can see here I will choose this one as a outside, outward,
Velocity
and
10,
velocity I will take here 10 and 10,
emitter size in x-axis around 100, y-axis 100,
100,
and keep the value 0
and
in
here I will
z-axis.
put 0, and in the particle seconds I will change their
Particle
life
size
cycle
around
up
15.
to 15 frames and live
Particle
randomness
size
is
random
0.
is 0,
So I
and
don't want
change
to
the
be here
particle
that
type
one.
to
I
sphere.
just take the size of the sphere, the size of live random size 0, 0, size
Let
of
me
the
change the particle size
sphere
about 2.
I will take it here 0.2,
Y is not
and
visualized.
you cannot be
Let
see
me check.
here. I just want to be
Sorry, I
size
forget to enter the value in particle
2.0
size.
and
And the random size
size
is around
1.0
100.
and 100
Let me change the opacity value to
and
100, and
opacity.
opacity random value also keep 100.
Yeah, it's
Now
working.
it's working.
Okay, now
Change the
I'll
color
just change
to
that
light
color
orange.
around here. Okay, so orange color, and you can
I will
see
also
in
change the
the
size over the
opacity
live
bar,
graph.
size over opacity
Let
live.
me reset the graph and
I will
slightly delete
change
at the
here
beginning position of the
this
graph.
graph just little bit. Okay, now once you have this one, then select this mode to add
Change the layer blending option screen.
to screen.
Press Ctrl D to make another copy of
After
the
this,
particle layer.
take another layer. Now select this
And
particle,
change the
press
particle
Ctrl
rate
D,
up to 1000.
again the change the particle rate. I'll take here emitter 1000,
Change the direction uniform
you know,
and keep the velocity 0, and velocity motion also keep 0,
0,
because I don't want to move the
and
particles and initial velocity.
here I will
And
put
keep all the emitter size 0.
everything 0, and come back to particles
Let's change the
type
particle
and
size
take here
up to 15 and change the particle
and
type cloudlet.
cloudlet, and select here size around this, no, 15, and
Change the opacity around 40
opacity around
or 5.0.
5,
I think it should be more or less. Change it to 1.0. Now looks good.
1 is okay for me.
Change the color light
Change
gray
that color
like a cloud color.
okay,
And change the transfer mode to
add.
the add, and also change the layer blending option
Here
add.
you have to select
Now
add.
you can see we got one swirl in the
Now
cloud
you
light.
can see one layer inside of this. So
Let me change the blending option to add the first particle layer. Press Ctrl D to make another particle layer. You can see here, once we take a new particle layer and adding some effects, create a more detailed particle in the galaxy. Let me change the particle rate up to 2500.
Select this one, make it a little also. Not to work with this. I'll just select here particular.
Now keep the velocity for this layer 10.
Velocity 10.0. Select here 10.0 and velocity motion.
And velocity from motion 25%.
25.0 velocity motion 25.0 and
Emitter size in y-axis around 50%.
around 50 and particles
Particle life second 1.
around 1 frame. Okay,
Let me change the layer 6 particle life second up to 15.
The particle seconds. Okay. Let it be 15. Okay, now come back to here. So here I will take the particle seconds thing and opacity size.
Particle size 20.
20 and opacity
And opacity of 2.0
0
or 3.5.
no problem for that.
Here I will
And,
slightly change
active
the size of the life graph
size of life panel
so that I will get more variation in cloud size.
little bit. Yes, after this
Change the
select
color
your
light
color.
orange.
Sometimes some orange kind of color I want here. So after this I just apply one
CC
Now
vector
apply
blur.
CC vector blur
Select here
and change the type
come back to
perpendicular.
here. That particular
Amount around
amount
200 plus. And change the angle offset up to 4 degrees.
direction 4.0 rigid is
Rigid degrees around 2.4. We can also tweak this later after I track mat this layer.
and max more less 0. So we have this kind of output here. Let me lightness. So I select here.
Select the layer number 3 and switch off the solo icon.
And select this option emitter. Again emitter I have put here 2015.
I keep here velocity 0.5
0.0 and some opacity
and velocity in motion 25%.
25.0
The same animations. Okay. And after this leave it 0, the particle seconds, 15 seconds, and cloudlet. Okay. The size I will be reducing.
here. For making a mask, I will take it
Particle size around 10 or 12.
around 12.
Also adjust the size over
Take
life
this
graph.
size here 12 and edit the graph and size over life
And delete a little bit more.
Edit the graph. After this opacity here, I will
Opacity around 3.0.
Let's 3.
Change the color reddish yellow.
Change the color, any color you want, any of the color you want to take.
Now
And track
select
matte this layer.
one layer. Now both
Select alpha inverted option.
alpha in this much of
Let me tweak the
So
vector blur
let me
amount.
See some okay, the angle and the size. Cloudlets.
And change the size up to 11.
something like that.
Now you can see the motion
We
vector
have
blur
added one
track matte creating
new
ambience
effects
in the
over
galaxy.
here.
Press Ctrl D to make a duplicate layer of the particle. And change the emitter size up to 1000. Velocity 0. Velocity in motion also 0. Emitter size keep the value 25 in XY Z axis. Here I will change the particle life second 1 second, and life random is 100 and particle size around 11. Also change the opacity up to 11 and change the color to dark red. I will also change the size over the life curve. Here I will take another copy of particle layer for creating core depth particle of the galaxy. Change the particle rate up to 2500. Keep the velocity 5.0 and velocity in motion around 5.0. Emitter size 5 in all the axes.
5. After see here particle life cycle है 15
Particle size up to 15.
15
Size in random
रैंडम है ये रैंडम है
0.
साइज ओपेसिटी ओवर लाइफ साइज ओपेसिटी ओवर लाइफ 6/6
Opacity 6.0.
ओके बट्टे 25
And opacity random around 20%.
20 and the
Also change the
size
color
here
dark gray.
dark some dark color स्क्रीन मोड रहेगा नॉर्मल जो है एंड उधर साइज ओवर लाइफ में इसका जो opacity
And
curve
I will also
है,
tweak life over graph curve.
ठीक है ओके okay, this one okay, and cloudlet
Change cloudlet feather up to 100%.
100%. Okay, now just switch back to layer. This
Change the
option
blending
I
option
will take
multiply.
here, multiply. Okay, now finish this one. Again just
Create
let's
another layer
select
of
this
particle.
layer, Control D and press it here.
Change the blending mode,
Blending
add.
mode. Now select this layer and press U 1000. Emitter 0
Also change the
100.
particle rate around 1000.
1000.
I will keep velocity 0
0. Let's keep it here. 0.
and velocity in
0
motion also 0. Emitter
and
size
25.
25 x-axis.
0. Now something like this. After particle seconds, life seconds,
Life seconds up to 15
life seconds 0,
and change the
clouds,
particle type cloudlet.
cloudlets, and
Size around 5.0
5.0, 100, and opacity
and also change the opacity 5.0
100, and the color is something like this. So if you have this, you will add this
and
much.
change the color yellow orange.
You can find and tweak with some of the okay. Now this is done. After this, I'll take it another layer, Control D. That one. On that I will
Press
keep
Ctrl D to make
here
another copy of this layer.
particle rate emitter 1000. Resume here
And change the particle rate up to 5000.
Let me see what is happening here. 5000 and put some
Keep the velocity 5.0
0
and velocity in motion around 25%.
Around 25 and x 0 life cycle
Change the life 1.0
1.0
for fade in swirl
and cloud size 5 and opacity
and keep the opacity around 3.0.
3.0 and purplish
Change the
orange,
color reddish orange.
some kind of this color, and
Transfer mode I will keep here screen.
screen and add. So
Now you can see step by step we are adding more detail in the galaxy.
so after doing this,
Press Ctrl D to make another duplicate layer, and this is the final layer of particle I am creating here.
I will select again particle U and here is I will take 1000 and U.
Let's change the particle rate around 1000.
1000 and come back to here. You can see here the effect. So
And keep the
1000,
velocity
I will take it
1.0.
here, 1.0 0 0 0
velocity from motion 5.0.
0.
Keep the size 25 in the X and Y axis.
Let it be 25 and
Life cycle up to 15
15
and change the particle type star with no depth of field.
Star with no depth of field, size 0.6,
Size around 0.5. Let me give 0.8.
8 and 100.
Opacity 100%.
So now you will have this one and yellow ochre. Select the color
And change the color yellow orange.
Somewhat here. Okay. Now select the layer and option screen or and add.
so
Now you can see the stars are glowing in the galaxy. I will create here one point light. Press Ctrl Alt Shift L, keeping the name of this light flare, so that the optical flare plugin will find the light according to the name.
position this light around
Change the position of the light 960 in the x-axis and 560 in y-axis. And also keep the value 0 in z-axis. Now you can see the light is center aligned to the galaxy. Let me push a bit in z-axis around 0.5. Let's create one new solid layer with the name flare. Go to Effects menu, Video Copilot, select Optical Flare, reduce the brightness value 50%,
brightness 50 and
select the source type track light,
track light
and color I choose here red,
be this one and layer with
and select the name start with the alphabet F.
F and
Change the blending option add, you can also increase or decrease the intensity of the light. I will keep here around 120. Finally, one more element I want to add here, star field. Let me import the image.
here star field
I'll keep this layer at the bottom of the all layer. And tweaking the opacity near about 15%. Now you can check your animation. It takes long time, so I will come back after the render process will done. This is the final output. I render it. And you can create more effects like this. Just follow the principle I use here. This is the end of this tutorial. I hope you learned something to take your skill up to the next level. If you want to more video like this, then subscribe, share and like my channel. Thanks for watching.